to go through today is basically show you all the new web-based fan selection software that will be replacing our current desktop application. So this is the 8th course we've done, and basically what we'll be doing here today is I'll be demonstrating how to use the software. You can use it at the same time because what I'm showing you here is the live service. But what we'll be doing basically is a series of selections. So the format of the course that we've set up is basically I will do the demonstrations myself. So in terms of a bit of background, why are we doing this? Well, the program that you're currently using, the desktop program as we refer to it, it's 17, 18 years old, and it's now becoming very difficult to support and develop. And it's now really considered end of life. It's been used for so long, it's now becoming difficult to extend its functionality and usage. So what we've decided to do is obviously replace the program with a new application, and we wanted to make sure that the new application has as much life in it as the current desktop program. I mean, 17 years for a program is quite good in terms of usage and time. So we decided to use web as the main interface. This is where most things are going nowadays. So we wanted to make sure that the interface is going to be laid out and presented in a way that's going to be as interactive and usable as possible for as long a time as possible. In terms of making what we're going to see today live, it is actually already live, but there are some functionality that we're releasing during the March period, and more specifically the pricing. So the live version you can see today doesn't have pricing. The live version that I'm going to show you will have pricing. The launch date will be during March. This will be communicated to you all officially through the sales managers and teams from the Colchester office. What we currently have in the program now is two things. We've got all the core products, and we have what we describe as the essential functionality. This is basically enough to do a selection and to produce a quotation in line with what you can currently do in the existing software. It's not a direct copy, so there are things that are different, and there are some things that aren't in the web version that are in the desktop, and also vice versa. There's things in the web that aren't in the desktop. So over time, we'll add more and more functionality. So this new web version will far exceed what the desktop can currently offer. A couple of consequences here, obviously, is that the old or current desktop program will need to be retired during next year, or this year, sorry. And also we'll be removing pricing. So when we go live with pricing on the new web version, the desktop version will cease to price. So during this March period, pricing will be turned off in the desktop program. And then after April onwards, we'll start to withdraw the desktop program from active use. That will be a gradual process. There won't be a one-off switch that we'll toggle. That will be something we'll gradually, month by month, remove certain access from certain types of users. So in terms of using the program, where is it? Well, it's a web-based application. So the website that hosts the application is under fanselector.flatgroup.com. There's no www, it's just basically fanselector.flatgroup.com. This is one thing that I recommend that you bookmark this, which I'll show you a couple of methods to do in a minute before we start using the software. But it's an access or global access website, so it will work anywhere in the world, and it's just fanselector.flatgroup.com. A couple of things to bear in mind. We will require, or you will require, a new account when you create usage for the first time. And that's because the new web-based version of the software uses a global single sign-on to all flat group selection tools. And to achieve that, we have to create a new account, basically. So the old accounts you have in the desktop program will not be migrated across. You'll need to sign up and register for the first time to use the new web-based version. And as I said, it's worth noting that you really want to create a bookmark to this so you can go back to it very quickly and easily. As by default, you obviously don't get a desktop shortcut because it's not an installed program on your computer. So really the whole point of today is to do a demo. So no more PowerPoint. The best thing I can do is actually show you the software, go through a series of selections, and I say at the end then we can go through and ask some questions, and then we can, I'll do my best to basically give you answers to anything that you raise. So a couple of things. It's a web-based program. I'm going to use this demonstration in Google Chrome. It gives the best experience in our opinion, but it will work in any browser. So it's not exclusively to Chrome. The only browser it won't work with is the old Internet Explorer, but then that's technically a withdrawn program, so that shouldn't really be used anymore. So everything I'm doing here today will be in Google, but the concept will be the same for all web browsers. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the website. So I've already been there before, so I've got it as a shortcut. So this is fanselector.flatgroup.com. So now we have our landing page. So first thing I'm going to do before I attempt to use this is I'm going to bookmark this website so I can go back to it quickly. So this URL I'm going to effectively add to the browser itself. And I'm also going to create a desktop shortcut icon to it. So in Chrome, and again, this differs between browsers, when you're on a website that you want to store, number one, I strongly recommend that you have the shortcut toolbar in view, which for some reason in Google is off by default, but you can see here this bar across the middle are all my current shortcuts. And the way that I personally do it in Chrome is I use the dots. You can go to bookmarks. You can turn on the bookmark bar, which is this option here, which is off by default. And then basically you can bookmark the tab and then you can give it an appropriate description and name. And then that will appear here as a shortcut, so you can go directly to this website. The other thing, which I think is also very useful for you to do, is actually to create a desktop shortcut to the website. Very simple again, on your desktop, you right click, you go new, you create a shortcut. And in the shortcut, you're effectively putting in the URL of the web page. So that's the full https://fanselector.flatgroup.com. Next, you can give it a name. So I'm going to call it Fan Selector. Finish. And then you basically get a shortcut to a web page, which is the Fan Selector. Now, this benefits you more, I think, in the fact that you can put this shortcut in the system tray. And if you like using it, you can also put it into these tiles area under the Windows Start. So it gives you a more convenient way of actually loading up the website. Between this and the shortcut in the browser itself, it will give you a one-button link to this particular application. So now we look at the program. This is the landing page, the home page. Just to go through a bit about the geography of what we have and purpose of different things on the screen. So we start at the top. So you can see here we have home, products, and direct mode. Now this is a non-logged in version. So the software will work either logged in or non-logged in. The difference between the two modes is if you're logged in, you can save your selections to a project and you can see pricing. There's a few other program settings as well you get, but that's the main difference. So if you're not logged in, you can still make selections, but you just don't see pricing and you can't save what you've done. So the way that the program's laid out, this menu across the top here is your main navigation of accessing different things in the program. So home page is what we're looking at now. Products is where we have all the product groups, and direct mode or configure is where you manually configure the product based on certain product properties and attributes. Beneath this menu, we have this gold bar, which is currently blank and empty. This gold bar is dynamic and will change depending on what you're doing in the program. And in here, you'd have different options that you can use to display information or perform calculations. You'll see as we go through what appears in this bar, but this is the dynamic area where some of these options will be located. Left-hand side is the main login service and navigation between all of our common group tools. In the main body of the page, we have on the left-hand side here just a series of adverts that we will run just to promote either products or certain features that we've added. And in the middle of the page, we have our main product grouping. And the products are grouped on or by two areas. We have applications and functions, and we have the actual product lines and families themselves. Now, this, which you'll see later on, is really a one-off use. And this front page and menu here is only really for casual users. If you're going to use this software to make selections and make repeat selections, you wouldn't tend to use this. You would use these top menus. So in the demonstration I'll be doing, I'm not really going to come back to this page after I've left it, but this is its purpose. It's allowing you to basically visualize these groups in a more web sort of page format, and they're really for casual users. On the right-hand side, this will change because we're currently promoting the offline version. That will be changed very shortly. On the right hand side, we're going to promote certain program features and convey updates and changes that we've made to the program. So this is one example. We have here a new feature that's been added called Find a Product from a competitor code. So I'll just show you how this works, just to show you an example. This is quite unique, I think, to our software. I don't think anybody else is doing this. If I press it, we get a little box appear at the top. And in here, we can type in here, I just typed in AX, and it will find all of the competitors that we have, their products, and it will find our equivalent of that product. So you can see here, we've got fans from New Air, System Air, and the Venco, all different designations. But you can see on the right-hand side, this is our equivalent of that product. And this orange button here that says select, well, allows us to go and make a selection against that product type. Quite useful if you're working with a lot of competitors to ours, because we do have this mapping. It's not 100%, so there's a few gaps. So again, if you find something that you think would be useful to have in there, let us know, we'll add it. But we have the main ones in there that we can find at the moment. And this is what we'll be basically doing on this right-hand side. We'll be conveying these new features to you, so you can see when you go to the website for the first time what we've changed and what we now offer. Top right-hand side is where you'd have the ability to change your language. We're launching only in English at the moment. We do have 14 languages in the database behind the scenes. The languages are currently being translated and linked up, so the translations will hopefully go live sometime around the April period. When I log in, which I'll now do, you'll also see this top area will change to convey information about me as the logged in user. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm now going to log in. So I'm going to go to the left-hand side here to this sign in option. I'm going to press it. Now I already have an account, so I can just basically enter my details and log in. As I said at the beginning, if you're the first time user of this website version, you'll need to sign up. And you can see on this login page, you can see down here, there's a sign up option. And if I press the sign up option, you'll have a box that says what's your email address. And then once you fill that email address in, you'll be sent a verification code. And when your email is validated, you can then fill in the rest of your credentials, which is only about 3 or 4 pieces of information. And then your account is created, and then you can start using the software. So because I've already got an account, I can go straight in, which I'll do so now. And visually, it looks much the same, but there's a few changes. So first of all, you can see on the top now I've got more options. The main thing is I can now see myself, and in here I can see my properties and program settings, so I can make changes to my details and also how the program operates and behaves. I can also see here that I've got a price list that's appeared, EU transfer, because every user once logged in belongs to at least one price list. So when your user is created, you will find in this gold bar here the price list that your prices will be based against. And also you can see this little My Projects thing has popped out on the left-hand side. It's currently empty, because there's nothing in here at the moment. But this is where all your save selections will go. So unlike the old program, the old desktop program, where the project was a separate pop-up window, this is always in the program, but it's just minimized here on the left-hand side next to the navigation toolbar. So on the front page, it minimizes automatically. If we go and make a selection, you'll see it will pop out to show you the details of what we've currently saved. So there's not much more to say about the home page. It's really a one-off experience, and I don't think for users like yourselves, you'll be using this very often. The main thing you'll be doing is using these top menus to navigate around the program. So now we're logged in, we've got an extra menu option now, show my projects. This is where all my saved projects will be located. But the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to make a very simple selection and see what happens, just so you can see the experience. So I'm going to go to products, and you can see here we've still got the same two groupings. We've got the applications and we have the product lines. The difference here compared to using the front page is you have the ability to, one, see all the products in these different groups, and you can choose this to select the products in 2 different ways, technically 3 different ways. The one I've highlighted at the moment is a JMV. You can see I've got this product card that's appeared on the right-hand side. If I choose a different product, I get a different product card. Here, though, you have the ability to go and select just this product using these orange buttons on the right-hand side, or I could go to direct mode and configure it. I also have the option to use this blue button that says I'm going to make a selection across all of the products in this particular family or group. So this blue button is effectively what this home page is doing by default. So any of these options here is effectively this blue button. In this menu here, you have the option to go and pick specific products only. So it's a more defined way of actually choosing what you want. But the two methods still work the same way. So I'm going to go and use this example against the JMV. So I'm going to go and press select against the JMV. I'm just going to make a very simple selection and then we'll see what we get. Now the project, as I say, pops out, which is currently empty because we haven't created anything. So I'm just going to minimize that to get a bit more space. So what have we got? Well, first of all, in the gold bar, you can see we've now got more options on the right-hand side. We have two that are white and two that are gray. So results grid is the classic results grid of your results. Again, we've not made a selection yet, so it's currently empty. Reset resets all your settings. And these two on the right-hand side that are grayed out will only become active when we have at least one product selected from the results grid. Now, we've not made a selection yet, so that's why they're grayed out. So we can't add anything that doesn't exist, and we can't print something that doesn't exist. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make a very simple selection, and I've done this typically at 200 just to get something out. I'm going to press the orange select button. The program will go through and make a selection like it does in the old program. There's nothing different here. Performance and speed, you'll notice this is about twice the speed of the old program in terms of delivery of results. So in this example at the bottom here, you can see I found 18 selections, all of the JMV product type. Now what I've done here is, if we look at the results grid and the details within, as the old program again, we highlight any value that's best for a particular category. So you can see here we've got efficiency and power in yellow. So this is the best efficiency and the smallest power. All these columns, like the old program, are sortable. So the default sort you can see here just about with the little up arrow. The model code is the default sort. So this is basically showing you the smallest fan first. If I press that column again, it will show me the biggest fan. If I press it again, it will show me the smallest fan. So it's A to Z, Z to A searching. All of these columns again are configurable in your account. So you can choose which ones you want to display in what sequence and what order. They're also adjustable in terms of the width. So you can adjust the width to display things better on whatever size monitor you're currently using. So in my example, I'm displaying quite a few columns, so I have to go side to side to see everything in the results grid. For those of you who are blessed with big monitors or high resolutions, more of that will fit on the screen, and this scroll bar will be a bit smaller. Differences that we have then between this and the existing program that you're familiar with. Well, first of all, you can probably see here, as part of the main selection process, we automatically show a small thumbnail of the performance of every fan in the results grid. So all these 18 fans have this preview. You can press the preview to make it a bit bigger, just so you can see it a bit more clearly, but it just gives you a visual indication of roughly where you're operating on the curve. We also, if I move to the right-hand side, that's where I've chosen to put it, we automatically price when you make the selection. So there's no price button anymore like the old program. It does it at the same time. And that's why when you looked at the selection that I made, the speed at which the results came back is at least, and this is conservative, twice as fast, because it's pricing at the same time that it's selecting and also doing the thumbnail and preview of the fan performance at the same time it's selecting. If you put a stopwatch next to the two programs side by side, this one will always beat the selection speed compared to the old one. So I've just randomly at the moment highlighted the second fan on the list, this 40 JMV. And now I've highlighted the fan, you can see it's ticked and it's gone grey. We've added some extra options now at the top. And also these two buttons that were greyed out on the right-hand side are now white and available because this is an active fan. So I've chosen one fan from the grid, it's considered active. And when it's active, we can look at different things. So you can see here we've got summary charts, dimensions, etc. So let's have a quick look at the summary page. So this is the equivalent of the technical info page in the old program, where we have all the calculated data for the selection that we've made. We have the aerodynamic and performance chart, sound data, anything to do with the commercial items, including the accessories, which we'll look at later. And on this single page here, we have also the overall key dimensions of this product. So what you have here basically is one page that gives you all the key information for this one fan on a single sheet of A4 basically. On the charts, we have here is, again, very similar to the old program. You have the aerodynamic chart, and underneath minimized, you have the power chart. We've also added as well the efficiency chart, just so you can see the efficiency curve shapes. These two are minimized by default, but this is very typical in terms of the chart that you see at the moment. Now, in this course, I'm not going to go through all the advanced details, but I'll just make you aware of this. The charts can be configured. So on the left-hand side here, you can see we've got this chart options tab. If I just press that, you can see here we can have all these different options to tailor how the chart is presented and displayed. Now, I've just been doing this as an example. So if I just turn the contours on and apply this, what you now have is the contours that are again available in the old program. If I go back to the summary page, you'll see this has also changed and updated this as well. So the chart settings affect how this chart is presented now in both the summary page and also the printouts, if I were to print this. There's a lot of options in here, but again, this is really an essentials training course. So if you want to mess around with this, feel free to play with it. But we'll be going through this sort of thing later on in a more advanced training session. Okay, if you look at dimensions, this is the key dimensions of the product. Difference here again to the old program, that we do actually have now a supported link to design and CAD files. So for this particular product, a 40 JMV, we have a link to a Revit and BIM file, which you can download. You'll also later on find in here other things like DXF and CAD files once we have them supplied from our engineering department. So the dimensions tab is where you'd have access to design and CAD files once they become available to us. Accessories, we'll come back to this in a minute in more detail in the options section, but these are basically the accessories that you can have for this particular fan with the classic K-factor allowances. We're going to come back to this completely when we look at these options on the left-hand side. Just bear in mind at the moment, these are the accessories just for this 40 JMV. So at the top here, this accessory here are things that are just for this selected fan. Acoustics is the sound spectrum, where we have the inlet, outlet, and breakout. If I decided to include a silencer, you'd see the insertion loss. And later on, we'll work out the resultant noise calculation of that silencer in the effect. And then documents is a link to basically our corporate website, where we have a link to, if I show the first one, all the documents you'd find on the web. So this gives you brochures, catalogs, O&M manuals, and other things that we have available in terms of downloadable data via the web. So these can again can be printed or downloaded. It's just a quick way of getting to the documents for each product type that we offer. Okay, so if I go back to the results grid, which I can do so by pressing this results grid option in the black bar. All our selections are still here. Now I'm going to just find another fan to have a look at. So the fan below it looks interesting to me, so I'm going to tick that as well. So I've ticked two fans now. So because I've got two fans ticked, you can see now we've grayed out some of these options because we've got more than one fan active. What we've inherited is this compare option. So I just go into compare. So what compare does, it shows, and again, this is a facility that's also in the old program. It shows you the two fans side by side, but it shows you the values to make an adjustment against. So you can see here again in yellow are the best values. So you can see here that in this example, the first fan I picked probably was the best fan, but it's not the cheapest. So this other fan that I looked at here is actually cheaper. So if price is your driving factor, you might sacrifice some of these benefits of motor power, sound, or SFP efficiencies and go for the cheapest. But you can see here very clearly that the cheapest fan is offering less in terms of benefit than the first fan that I picked. So it's just a nice way of showing the two fans side by side, and you can see the two fan charts in terms of a comparison also side by side. So I'm actually going to go for the cheapest fan. Now what I'm going to do here is a little bit different. I'm going to reselect this fan, but I'm going to label this now fan 1, and I'm going to say that I wanted 3 of these fans. I'm just going to reselect it. You'll see why I'm doing this in a minute. So this is one big difference in terms of how this program works to how the existing program works. This item reference and quantity you can define when you make the selection now. So when you add this to the project, it automatically labels the fan 1 and quantity 3. So what you have to do at the moment in the old software is you add something to a project, you then go and find it, you click it, and then you add this details afterwards. So you can still do that in here, which I'll show you in a minute, but it's easier to do this up front first when you're actually making the selection. So it's just an easier process, an easier way of working. So what we'll do, let's just add this to a project now, just so we can see what happens. So if I just expand my project view out, we currently have no project active. So I could open a project if I have an existing one, where I can add this fan to it. Or in this example, I'm going to create a brand new one. So I'm going to call this one. I can fill in more details if I needed to, like quote reference numbers, etc. But this is enough for me to do the demo. I'll create this project. So now you can see the project on the left-hand side is called Webinar 8. There's nothing in it at the moment because we've not added anything. So if I take the fan that we were looking at before, this 45JM, and I use the right-hand side option here to add to project. See, it's been added. You can see the fan 1 label has been brought through at the beginning. There's our model code. And if I right-click this fan in the project, you can see different options. I can delete it if I wanted to get rid of it. I could rename it or change the quantity. So although you can do this first, you can still do it afterwards, like the old program does. But I think you can see here it's just easier to do it up front. If I right-click this fan, I can go and rechange the name or change the quantity. You get a little dialog pop up. So I could call this one fan 12, for example, update the project, and you can see here it's changed to 12. So it doesn't matter whether you do it before or after, you can still change it. It's just quicker to do it first. This will make more sense later on when we add more items, but you can move items up and down in the project tree. So you can change their sequence and the order of which they're displayed. So I'm just going to minimize the project now, because we'll come back to that in a minute. And everything we've done at the moment is just a very simple basic selection with no other properties or options chosen. So I think it's worth just going through the options and then just understand what we've got and how we've got the screen presented and laid out. So I'm just going to expand the options out. And the first one we look at is called options. So these are all in groups. You can see here it's highlighted dark. This is the active group that we're in. So the options area is just basically a miscellaneous group of options that aren't really categorizable in their own right. But this is one thing that we've now changed in terms of the way the program works compared to the old program. We're now not just looking at mouse operations. So the whole interface has been designed for touch. So you can see here, for example, this series idling option in the middle. If you're familiar with Apple or Android devices, you'll notice this is how these work. You have either toggle on, toggle off. And again, we've used graphics throughout the program. So when you have something that's active, you can see very clearly that it's not active. And then when it's active, it becomes more prominent. And things like these options here at the top, they're like sliders. Again, they've been done this way to better use with the touch and tap interfaces. So these are basically interactable options, and they just basically move one or the other depending on which you pick. We still have drop downs, which again still works with touch. It's a little more clunky to do this way, but it does work. But that's the reason why we've laid it out in this format, is to make it suitable for modern devices and touch. This will work on all Android and Apple devices. It's a bit challenging to use it on a phone. It's a bit small, but it will work on a tablet quite nicely. But if you can do it and see the screen clearly enough, it will work on a phone. So basically, we've got access now to not just a Windows platform. We can access any device that's out there by using this web framework. We have a quick look at electrical and motor. So this is where you'd have all the properties relating to the motor that's driving the fan. Now we're currently looking just at the JMV. That's all. So the JMV we know isn't available in things like foot or flange because it's only available in the pad mounted format. So the program will remove options that are not relevant to what you're looking at. If I had chosen the JM for example, to start with, I would have seen more options here because they're obviously available with pad and foot. And they might have other options relating to different drive and motor types, depending on the product you're looking at. So it's trying to make the interface as clean as possible by removing things that are not relevant to what you're working with. Speed control, which is by default off. And we'll put something on just to show you what happens. Let's stick an inverter on. So again, this works the same way as the old program. You have two modes of speed control. You have a fixed system constant, or you have variable duty points. So let's just make a random duty selection. Let's do 3 at 250. I'm going to label this A and B just so we know what the points are. B. And now I'm going to reselect this now just to show you what happens. I'm just going to press select. So we get a similar number of fans back, but what we can see now is two things. One, that the chart has changed. You can see now we've got these two duty points. So if I open up this thumbnail, you see we've got the two duty points. We've also, though, got this plus symbol appear, which wasn't there before. So if I look at that, that's basically saying that I've now got this EA part numbered inverter added to my fan by default because I chose inverter. So this is where we'd have the accessories appear. So this is the first time we've now seen an accessory. And it's an inverter based on the fact that I've chosen speed control. Just go back to the options. Environment and temperature. Again, you can see here we've got some duplication appearing now. We've also got the temperature appearing here. That was also in the options panel on the right hand side. Doesn't matter which method you use or where you choose an option. We've put things in more than one place depending on what it is, if it makes more sense to display it in more than one place. This is an easier interface for touch because you can just basically push an option. The drop-down menus are a little bit more mouse-friendly. So again, you use the interface style that you're best happy with. For temperature and stuff, I would tend to use environment here rather than the options panel. We can also change down the bottom the air conditions if you want to change the air density depending on where the product is being operated. Installation, again, a JMV has limited options, but in here again you can see we've got a replication of the series idling. But in here you've also got the ability to choose how the product is connected to the ductwork, whether ABC type connections, and also if it's long or short cased on Form A, Form B. Now a JMV obviously is not long short cased, and it is only available in Form B, which is why these has currently removed the short case option and the Form A option. Again, if I'd picked a JM, you'd have seen those two options available. Accessories, which we will now go into. Now this does behave differently to the existing program. All the losses and K factors and everything else are the same, that's not a problem. But the way that we choose the accessories is different. Now I'm going to cheat in this demonstration. I'm going to press this recommended button at the top here, orange button, and put in a standard set of accessories that you typically see with an axial fan. So we have here our feet, flex flange, and anti-vibration mounts. Now what it's done, you can see here, we've got this quantity box. So some of these have got 2 in, some of these have got 1 in. And we've got this definition of whether the accessory is on the inlet or outlet side of the fan. Now at the moment you can see here, they're shown separated from the fan. The reason we're doing this is later on in the year, we'll have an extra column appearing here that says fitted. And what we'll be doing is actually doing a calculation based on the knowledge that a particular item, so for example, if I had one of these accessories, which is a big loss factor, directly attached to the fan, we can perform calculations on the effect of that accessory, on the knowledge that it's actually attached to one side of the fan or the other. We can also work out, scroll down, the anti-vibration mounts more accurately because we know which accessories are physically attached to the fan. Now we're starting with these being remote, they're separated, but that's why you now see this inlet and outlet, so we can define certain characteristics and the behavior of that accessory when the fan is actually selected. For the minute it's just a visualization, but later on when we have this fitted column, that's its purpose. So again in here you can change K factors if you're not happy with it, you can add or remove quantities. It works pretty much the same way as the old program. If a quantity is 0, it's not there. Anything above 1 is going to place an image of the accessory in this view at the bottom, and that will be then used as part of the calculation. In the accessories tab, we also have 2 other tabs, silencers and services. If I just go into silencers, for an actual fan, we've got 2 types of silencer. I'm going to choose cylindrical. It's a bit easier to work with an actual fan. And this again works in a similar way to the other accessories where you can define, let's go for a 1D silencer, for example, B type on the inlet. So again, we can display the accessory, in this case a silencer, and define its relationship, whether it's on the inlet or outlet side of the fan. So again, once we have the fitted, you can see here at the moment, these are just fixed on remote for the minute. They're separate from the fan. When we have fitted, we can then again work out the resulting noise calculation on, and the effect of that silencer when it's fitted to the fan, because we know where it is. So again, like the other accessories, at the moment, this is just a visualization, but that's the purpose. So longer term, we'll have the ability to define fitted, it will join to the fan, and then we can do a calculation. That will also remove things like this, which you can't do, which some of you may not know about, where we're going to make the program prevent this being attached to the fan, because you can't do it. It has too much of an impact on the fan's performance. So logic like this will be built into the program, and that's why we've laid things out in this way, so we can start to apply that logic when we actually make the selections. The last one is services, which is, most of these don't price because they're more project-based things, but this is where you can specify the different document types and certificates you want, and also some of our factory services like inspection testing and factory approval testing. Choosing it here at the moment will just show it as an accessory, but I say most of these don't price because they're more to do with project-specific activities. Okay, so I'm just going to reselect this again now, because we've now added a few accessories, and also with our variable speed selection in the inverter, we should now see on here, there we go, we've now got some more accessories. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to call this fan number 2. I'm just going to do a different volume and pressure, just so we've got something different in the grid. So I'm going to go for 400. And on the speed control front, I think I'm going to, let's leave it as 3 at 250 for those two. I'm going to go select. So now we've got fan 2, both my project up. I'll just take a random fan, doesn't matter which one I pick. Let's just take this one for the minute. I'm going to add that to our project, add to project. You can see now we've got fan 2, 71, but now we've got this plus symbol appeared. And this is basically the way that you can see in the project the accessories that have been attached to this particular fan, which are the same ones you see under this plus menu option here. So now we're in here, let's have a look at the impact of what we've done on some of these options at the top. So look at the summary page. The same as before, more or less, but you can see we've got more tabs appearing, because now we can show the performance at the A point and the B point. So we're currently looking at A. So all this calculation data here is at the higher speed, and the B point, which is the lower speed, you can see on the chart here, this is the performance at that slower speed. If I then showed all duties side by side, the chart takes a little bit of time to render, but this is a comparison again showing you the performances at the 49 Hertz figure, which is the faster speed, and the 38 Hertz speed, which is the slower speed. So you can see the different speed figures, the different powers, the different sound, and down here you can see the full spectrums. It's quite a nice way of showing all this data as part of the calculation. I think the old program tries to do this, doesn't do it very well, but it's just an easier way of seeing the calculated data. The charts will look no different. Dimensions, though, will look different, because what we now can show here is the dimensions of the accessories. So here we have some of the accessories we chose, like the silencer, the AV mounts, the inverter itself. These will always appear underneath the fan. And again, if we do a printout later on, you will see these in the printout. So again, this is something we can't do in the old program. So this is now giving you a bit more data in terms of information that a customer may require. So if we just go back to our project, if I go back to the results grid and go back to our options, there are a couple of other things we've not looked at. Products is where you'd see all the products that are in this current family. Now, I went to the top when I started here under this products tab. You can see all these options here that appear. I chose this orange option just for the JMV, and that's why if I look at the products here, you see that's the only one that's ticked. If I had wanted to do a selection against 2 product types, I can pick the JM, and then I'd make a selection against those 2 product types itself. If I press the blue button, all of these would be ticked. So basically, you'd be making a selection against every product, and you'd see all the things that can match the performance that you're asking for. Like the old program again, the more you tick, the slower it will be, and the more results you get. So if you know the type of product you're after, you're better to go and pick just that product type. Otherwise, if you don't, the blue button will basically tick all these, and you can make a selection across every single product that we offer. And lastly, the filters and constraints. This is where you can limit the results to come back. And again, this works very similar to the old program. You can specify max and minimums based on diameters, speeds, sound figures. You can limit how many results come back in the grid full stop. So if you're finding there's too many, you can say, give me the first 50, for example. So it allows you to reduce the number of results to come back and basically tailor what you're looking for. The old program does this as well, so it's not much difference in here. But it's quite handy if you're doing a selection where you're getting a lot of results. You can just basically remove the ones that are not relevant to you by just putting in some constraints. Okay, so now I'm just going to nip back to our project now. As you can see, we've got two things in our project. So now we've got two things. This option I showed you at the beginning here, this move up, move down, this now makes sense because now we've got two fans, we can use this. So I'm currently highlighting the second fan. If I go and move up, see that I can now jump that to the top of the project. So again, like the old program, by default, when you add to a project, the item will always appear at the bottom. And then you can right click and move it around to the location that you're happy with. But this project is still quite compact compared to what you're used to. All you really got here is a description and a model code, nothing else. So a couple of things to make you aware. See at the top now we've got these options appeared. Now we've created the project. So we can still open a new one. That's the default icon that you see on all project pages. You've also got three other ones that have appeared. You've got save, which I'd recommend you do at a fairly regular basis. So this is basically committing this particular project to the server. Print, I think quite obviously they would then print this project. And then this one here, briefcase, is allowing you to change the details of the project when you first create it. So you can rename it, for example, and you can add extra data like quote numbers, etc. But what you still can't see in here is much about the details of this particular fan. You can see its model code and reference, but that's it. So I've been using this top option here to minimize and collapse this project. You can see at the bottom, there's this white option here that says expand. So this allows you to show all the columns that are currently in your project. These columns, by the way, are the same order that you have in your results grid. We'll look in a minute how you can change that. So this is now the two fans that I've picked. You can see here all the columns and details of the selection have been saved. Difference here, though, is we've got more options now appearing in this view. You see we've got this pound symbol appearing. So what we can do here, we can use this to basically reprice this project. So if I just go to the right-hand side, you can see here, these are the two values we have for the items that I've currently picked. So if I wanted to reprice this project to give me today's price, because obviously prices can change over time, I can press the pound symbol and I've got three options. I can update the prices, which will basically refresh every item in the project and reprice everything on today's current price. I can also edit the prices and also apply a multiplier. So if I have a look at edit for the minute, what we can do, and again, this is the same as the old program, if you have pricing turned on in the old program, you can actually allow people to change things. And again, this will be the same in here. So your accounts will have privilege to modify prices based on your relationship with us, whether you're an agent or a customer, etc. So what you can do in here is choose which items you want to adjust. So I'm going to do the whole lot just to show you what happens. I can either type numbers in if I want to put a value in of my own choice, or I could simply put in, let's just do 10% uplift. I could calculate that, so it'll work out what 10% is. I can apply it, and it will basically update the project with the values based on that 10% increase. Now, the reason they've gone green is because I've taken them up to the original price. So there's three colors you will see in here. Black is the default current price. In other words, it's not changed from what the program would price automatically. Green means the price has been raised up by an amount. And if I had the privilege to do so, and I know my user does, to apply a discount, go in here, edit prices. If my user could apply a discount, now I can take things down to naught value, which is a bit silly, but your user might have a maximum, say, of minus 10% discount, depending on your relationship with us. Then you could take the values down, and if you did that, they'll go red. So visibly in the grid in this project, you can see whether a value has been adjusted and whether it's been adjusted up or down based on the color. A few other things to mention in here, which are also quite useful. The old program has the ability to extract data from projects, which you can use in things like Excel. So how do you do that in here? Well, you can't do Control A like you can do in the old program, because obviously you're going to take here the whole web page. So what we've done is given you some options under some menus. So in the program, you'll find these little hamburger menus appearing in different locations. So in this brown bar at the top here, you can see this hamburger menu. If I press that, you can see we've got some options. Some of these are the same as the icons. You can see we've got open, we've got print, we've got export. Some of these are unique only to this drop down. So export and download products shortcut are two that are unique to this drop down menu. So let's have a look at export first. So what export gives you the ability to do is to define the items that you have in your project. And if you wanted to export this, say, to example, Excel, what columns do you want to show? And the way this works, basically, these are your default columns across the screen here. If you didn't want something, say, for example, you didn't want phase, I can just drag that up here into this excluded columns area. You can see it's now been removed. And if I then saved my defaults here, this column will now be removed from the export if I then extend this to an Excel file. I can also move things around. If I wanted casing at the beginning, for example, I could just basically move this. And you can see the options that are available to you. When you move your cursor over stuff, you see the icon will change. So you can see here we've got this movement icon. So that indicates that you can do something with it. You can either get rid of it, or you can move it to a different location in the project table. And as long as you press Save Defaults, that will retain that setting. The next time you come around to use this facility, the columns and the order will be in the ones that you've defined when you press Save. And the way it works, basically, if I just show you, just press Excel, CSV file, you get a downloaded file at the bottom. If I just press that, wait for Excel to load up, you effectively get, let's make it presentable and readable, an export as a plain text file in Excel with all the columns and details of the item of the fans that are in our current project. It's the same as you'd get in the old program. What you've got here, though, is the ability to do this without having to use the cut and paste method the old program offers. You have to do it in here using this download option and a physical option that says export it to a file. And then thereafter, you can then use it in Excel and do what you like with it. This is used very heavily here in Colchester when we're doing technical projects and technical schedules. In your own businesses, again, you might have a need to have offline summaries of projects, and that'll be a nice and easy way for you to get the tabularization of the data into a format that you might want to use in a different system. I'm going to cancel all this. I don't want to save any of that. We also have the ability in here to save a shortcut link. Now, there's a big difference to how projects work here to how projects work in the software that you're familiar with at the moment. So at the moment you have FWP files, a saved project file, which you can store anywhere on your hard drive or your network. Well, this is a web-based program, and there is no such thing because all the files are currently in the cloud online. So if you have a series of supporting documents or files for projects that you're working on hard drives or networks, you might want to provide a shortcut to the project of the selections that you've made for those files, like you would do now, where you copy the FWP file into that same location. What you can do here is you can create a shortcut to this project. I'll just show you how this works. If I just download this shortcut, you get this prompt at the bottom saying about, are you sure you want to keep this? Because a browser thinks a shortcut's at risk. But anyway, we keep it. See, we've got a file here. If I go to my downloads folder, and go to my downloads folder, you can see here we've got a shortcut called Webinar 8. It's taken the space out because file names are not best with spaces, but that there is a shortcut to this project. So if I basically copied that shortcut here to anywhere on my hard drive or server location, I can basically keep it in the same way that you use the FWP files. But what you're doing is not storing the file there, you're just storing a shortcut to the project. And if you're not logged in and press that shortcut, it will take you to the login screen, you would log in, and then it will automatically load the project for you. So it's a direct path, if you like, to get to the project, even though the project itself is physically not anymore on your hard drives or on your servers. It's also quite a nice way to share shortcuts to projects between people, because that shortcut will load up the project if you have permission to load it. We also have the option in here as well to share projects. Now, this is normally done at the moment in the old program by copying an FWP file around to different people by mail and other means. But as I said, FWP files don't exist anymore. So if you want to give someone access to what you've done and what you've saved, you can share it. So I'm going to use Culture, for example, here. If you want Culture to work on a file for you or to give you some support on a particular project, you could share this, and the way it works, basically, you just specify who you want to share it with. So I've put an email address in. I could submit that, and that will basically send an email to that particular user. It will notify them that they've had a project shared with them, give them a link to that project. That project is then available to both you and them. In other words, you can both collectively work on the same project, even though the project is physically not with you as a separate file. You'll see more of this in a minute when I show you the saved projects that I've currently got in my listing. So this is the hamburger menu. It gives you more options. And so in here, these two here I think are useful, and certainly share is also very useful. Some of these are not relevant to you because they're for internal use. The other options are the same ones you see in these icons. So I'm just going to minimize this now. And I made reference to this sharing and my projects and the server of which everything is being saved in. Just to have a quick look at my projects. So I'm going to use this top menu here now, show my projects. The reason it's pressing leave, by the way, is I need to resave this project. It's a warning to say that things might be lost if you completely exit the website. So this is my list of projects that I've saved. If I scroll the page down, I think I've done 31 so far on my list. So these are everything that I personally have saved. They've all been created by me. In here, this is my project screen, or the open screen. You can see here we can import old files. So your FWP files that currently exist, you can import. So that will save you having to reselect the fans if you wanted to reprice the project or print it. If you import an old FWP file, however, you cannot change the technical details of the selection you've made. If you want to modify a fan that's in that project, you'll have to reselect it. So we can import to a certain level of information, but we can't import all the technical details because the old program doesn't do as much as the new program, and it's not 100% compatible for that reason. But what we can do, though, is reprice, and we can print. So if you wanted to reproduce an older project in a newer format, you can import it, and that would work. You just can't make changes to it. You can add to it. You can add another fan to the project, but you can't modify the fans that are already in there. And in this screen here, you can see we've got this table. We have the headings. Again, this is very much the same as the results grid. These are sortable. The default sort here is modified, so it's showing you the newest ones first. You see here, webinar 8, that's one I just created. This is also filterable. So if I type in here, for example, under project name web, WE even, web, then you can see here very quickly it filters out the projects that I've got saved and shows you the ones that are currently available. And that's pretty fast, I have to admit, in terms of how it does that. So over time, you'll have more and more projects. So what we will be doing is paginating these in blocks of 50. So when you go to this for the first time, you'll see only 50 projects, and then page 1, page 2, page 3 at the bottom. And that's purely for speed. So I'll show you in a minute what happens if you have a lot, because it goes a bit slow. But this pagination method that we're going to apply very shortly will overcome that because it only gives you blocks of 50. So this is my projects that I'm looking at. Now, in this drop down here, you can see this concept of teams, which is something we cannot do at all in the old program. Now, we can't set this up automatically. We have to be told this. But if you're a business where you have more than one individual, or you work in different teams or different regions, What we can do for you is bind people to various different teams and groups. Now, the benefit of that is if I just go and show you the Teams projects, you can see all of projects that have been done for other people that are in your team. This, by the way, is why we're going to paginate to 50 because I've got over 100 in here. It's 112 in here in that moment. So these are all the projects that are currently being created by people other than me. You can see here the owner. And you can see also here some of these have been shared. You can see this one here, for example, has been shared. This one here has been shared. So this is a way that you can see that when you have created something, if you chose to share it with somebody, you would see their details in this particular column. But these are projects that are not mine. These are all from my team. So again, if you're a business that has more than one person doing this job or different groups of people doing different regions or different functions, let us know. And we need to know what team you'd want to call them. And within that team, which users you'd want to have. And then basically we can set that up for you. So when then you have someone go and use this, they can see their own files and their team files. The team is a better way of working if you have collaboration because it saves you having to share every single file, which you can do, but it's a bit of a pain. So it's easier if you've got a team to collaboratively work on a series of files collectively. So when you've looking at this project view here, so if we look at all these projects that have been done by other people, or my own even come to that, if I highlight any one, you'll see on the right hand side we have this menu appear, that hamburger menu. This is again a menu for this particular fan project, sorry. So in here you can see we've got other options. I could share it here again if I wanted to. After a project's been saved, you can still share it. Again, I can get rid of projects. I can copy a project to make a clone of it, or I could print it or open a brand new one. Or actually open it itself. There's different ways of this working. You can double click if you want to use shortcuts. So double clicking does action opening certain things. But for training purposes, I always tend to use the menus because you can see them. So whenever you see these hamburgers, there's something behind the scenes. And you can see here the options that you can choose. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize that. And I'm going to go back to our products. So everything that I've done so far has been based around this JMV. Now we have other products in the product families. So just have a look at a couple of them and just see what we get in terms of the user experience. So let's first of all have a look at some car park fans. So here we have the 4 car park fan families that we offer. And we have the ability to select these products. But I don't know which fan that I want. I'm not a car park expert. So I'm going to go in here using this blue option, select all. So this, as I said before, now it shows me all the products. Now this screen looks completely different, but when you look at it closely, it doesn't really. So what this is basically doing, it's combining certain screens together in one because there's not many products in the car park range. So we don't need to have separate screens for the results grid, etc., etc. So we can basically group this together. But we've made it visual. So car park screens in the old program is an absolute mess in terms of how they're picked. So this is a more visual way of defining what options you want and what you're going to get. So if you look at it carefully, you've still got the duty panel in the left-hand side. Okay, you haven't got volume pressure anymore because that's not relevant to a car park fan, but it's still here. You've still got some options. Got some things here that are visible. So you can see here the default products. The reason we've done this, by the way, it shows you the relative heights. Again, I hadn't realized that the standard fan is actually lower than the slimline. But what you can see on the right-hand side there is a combination of some options that are commonly picked for this product, and also underneath some results grids of products that we've located. So the first thing I want to look at, I know that in this example, this you see here, it's got a guard on the inlet, and it's got a deflector on the outlet. I know that the fan that I wanted is with a deflector on both ends. But you can see it's grayed out. Very barely you can read that. It says inlet deflector is grayed out. Well, I know that I want that. So I'm going to press it. The program says, oh, you've got some conflicts, but I know that I want that. So I'm going to apply this. So what the program does, because it sits on a configurator, it says, okay, you wanted an inlet deflector. Well, in that case, then you can't have it as unidirectional. So it's changed the program settings to give me reversible as the option. because it knows that's the compatible option for the option that I have chosen. So it tries to remove incompatibilities basically from what you're after, to remove the dreaded no results found that you get in the old program, which is very common. So this tries to make that process more straightforward, and visually, I hope you can see it's more obvious what you're going to get. You can see here now I'm going to get a fan that's got a deflector on both ends. So if I just make a selection on this now, and I don't know the thrust figure, so I'm just basically going to show all the 355s. So I'm going to pick this 355 fan size here and just press select. So we have our 3 fans. The induction fan obviously is not that diameter, which is why it's not appeared in the grid. So these are the 3 fans that we have. And like an actual fan, if I highlight one of them and look at the top here, you can see the same options we have. Have a look at the summary page. It's slightly less data for a car park fan, but it's the same concept. You have the dimensions. In this case, you have a throw chart rather than an aerodynamic chart. But all the other groups and the other sections are the same. The pricing block, the sound block, dimensions page, acoustics charts, they're all the same in terms of how they work. The difference is that this screen's been laid out to give you the options on one screen. Basically, so anything you commonly pick for a car park fan is there. There's no need to go diving around in submenus and on option screens. So let's have a look at another one, see what we get. So let's have a look at box fans. So in here we've got 5 products. Again, I don't know which box fan I want, so I'm going to go in with the blue option, show everything. So again, the screen's completely different, but again, if you look at it closely, it's not. You still got the duty panel. Now these are relevant for a box fan because they do run on volume and pressure. A few more options here because they have settings that are different to a car park fan. But in here on the right hand side again, we've got the options and the grid combined on one screen because there's not that many box fans in our portfolio. And these options at the top are just very common ways to configure the different types and the different characteristics of the product. So if I wanted, for example, just a left-handed airflow, a box fan that moves the air to 90 degrees, I could turn off inline, I can turn off right. And again, it will remove products that are not suitable for that particular option. So when I make a selection, the results that come back then will be only valid the option that I've actually left active. Let's have a look at another one to see what we get. So look at roof units. Again, 4 in this range. I'm going to go in the blue option to show everything. Again, similar to a box fan, you have the options on the left-hand side. Again, the options in the grid are together. In here, for example, you've got a bit more visualization in terms of the product types that we offer. But again, they're commonly picked options. You enter your volume pressure, press select, and the results that come back are then relevant to what you actually asked for. So let's move from here now. Let's have a look at some of this left-hand side stuff. We've not looked at these at all yet. So these are the applications as opposed to these product groups and product families. So let's have a look at, say, for example, tunnels and metros. So a couple of visual differences. First of all, there's no blue button now. And that's because these are groups of different types of product. So there's no one screen that can be used to select these. So that's why when you use these application groupings, you only choose the product using these orange buttons on the right-hand side on these product cards. So let's just have a look at one of these thrust fans, see what we get. So if I go into this tunnel fan, again, the screen's completely different, but again, if you look at it carefully, it's not. Now this one does have a thrust because these are thrust-based products. You have some constraints and options, and you have some selection criteria that are commonly used with a tunnel fan. I can, for example, change to a bigger silencer arrangement. It gives you a visual indication of how the thing is supported. So you can see here, this has got a much bigger mounting frame, and it's also got multiple feet to hold the thing up. But in here, if I just make a random selection to 600 newtons, this is now not an aerodynamic selection, it's a thrust selection, but the concept is the same. I've made a selection, I've got some fans back in this grid. I can highlight one of them. I've got the top options. If I look at the summary page, I'll see the technical details of the car of the tunnel fan I've picked. These are the calculated data. The chart on these fans is a bit irrelevant because it's more of a pitch angle chart. But you can see here we've got the chart, we've got the calculated data, we've got the dimensions. Now some of these are required because they're a design product and they are very much specific to the project. But the dimensions that we do have that are fixed and constant are actually listed and shown. But the layout and presentation of this is the same as all the other fan types we've seen. It's just a different way that they're grouped. This is a miscellaneous group of products. So if I look at industrial, for example, you've got all sorts in here. And on the right-hand side, they're grouped by family and product type. And it's only these families that offer this blue option. Everything on the left-hand side is offering these red options only. Okay, there's only one thing that I've not shown, which I'll end with, and that's the concept of direct mode. So I'm going to go back to the home page here, just so we can launch in from the beginning. And we've not touched this at all yet. We've got this direct mode option. Now, there's two ways of getting in here. I could get into it from here, just by using this configure option. So I could choose the product that I want. I can go configure. Or if I go in from the front page, you'll get the default product, which is a JMV from memory. And it takes you to the what you would know as direct mode screen, which is the configure screen. And let's just make this a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing. So this again works in a very similar way to the old program. You have the choice of the product groups that you're working with and the different product lines within that group. When we go live next week, by the way, you'll also have in here a search facility, so you can search for part numbered items. We've currently got this in test at the moment. So this area here, where you can see my mouse moving, is where there'll be a search option. There's an orange button that says search, and that allows you to type in a part number for any of our catalog products that we have to very quickly go to that particular product without having to use these options we have underneath. So these options underneath are what you'd see currently in our current direct mode. So these are common things you pick. We've grouped a few things together here. So we've got high temperature in here and a few electrical details for the motor, because these are very commonly chosen when you're doing a configuration. All the other options still exist on the left-hand side. You can still add your accessories and everything else, but these are the ones that are more commonly chosen when using direct mode. So the way this works, basically, it's like the old program again. It works on what you choose. So in this case here, it defaults to the smallest fan. But I know, again, the fan that I want has a 315 hub. Now, I know this is stupid because the fan I've got by default is a 315. So the motor is now, the hub is the same size as the fan. So I'm just going to pick that. It says, you know, there's a conflict because, you know, the hub is the same size as the fan. I want that hub though, so I'm going to press apply. So again, because this is sitting on a configurator, it then says, okay, well, you want a 315 hub. Well, you obviously can't have a 315 fan. The smallest fan we have with a 315 hub on a JMV is an 800. So it's changed the settings for me based on what I asked for. So now this fan here is one that's suitable with the 315 hub. If I put a duty point on here, just put something in the middle. Again, this works the same way as the old program. I can click on the chart and add duty points at will. I could plot if I wanted to on the right-hand side here, left-hand side here. So again, this is the actual point that I've placed. I could put any value on here and plot it on the chart. And again, that works the same way as the existing direct mode. The motor's on the right-hand side. The default motor is, I think, the one with the shortest lead time from memory. So in this case, it's 5 weeks. We will change this, by the way, because people have mentioned that W is not obvious, but this is actually lead time on the right-hand side. So a D is a day and a W is a week. We will make that a bit more clearer when we go live fully. So the one that's active is grey, you can see here. The active motor you can just about see on the chart here. We have these max and min lines. That just shows you the pitch angles that motor can currently operate to. Now, there's a lot of motors in here. The default is to show you motors that are relevant to the temperature that I'm asking for. In this case, I'm using standard temperature. If I show all the motors, which should be a horrific list, this is everything that can physically fit in this fan, loads of them. All temperature categories, everything. So in here, you've got the ability to pick absolutely anything you want. But the default view, which makes more sense, is temperature. We will again reduce some of the options in here because some of these powers, they're just too big for doing. So we will remove these out for this particular fan to make this list more compact. But they will fit and they will do the job. They're just a bit silly at the moment. So our view is to try and make this clearer by removing some of these oversized selections, basically. Again, if I choose any of these different motors, you will see the chart will change based on the options that are relevant to the motor that I've picked. Even that smallest motor will do the power. So you don't need half of these things in this list. A bit of difference here, though, to this and the old program. What you can do in here is if you have a fan that's installed on site, or a customer's asking about what can my fan do if I want to change its performance, you can see here you got this speed dial. So this is working with the constraints of the impeller speed and the motor speed, and whichever of the two has a limit to define how fast and how slow you can run this fan. So what I could do, I could slow this fan right down. Let's just slow it right down to something like that. Now, because I've slowed it down, my duty point's fallen off the chart. So let's go down somewhere where it makes more sense again. So I've now slowed it down to a weird speed of 919 RPM. Let's look at the summary page at the top, because again, these gold options are relevant to the fan that I'm configuring. Let's look at the summary page. What I can see here, though, now is the actual performance of the fan when it's running at this weird 919 speed. So what direct mode gives you, I go back to configure here to go back to the chart. What direct mode gives you here is the ability to see a fan's performance based on not having to put an inverter with it, but just to see what a fan can do if you were to run it at different speeds. If I speed it up, for example, just about on the curve there, that'll do. Summary page. So now I'm running at, again, a weird speed, 1899 speed. So all this data here, the sound data and everything else, is now calculated at its running speed. There's no inverter here. This is purely a fan's performance, but it's quite a nice way to actually show you, or show somebody, the capability of how the fan can behave and perform. In direct mode as well, you can also see, like the chart screen that we looked at earlier, there's this chart options. You can change how this chart looks. So for example, if I took off the contours, which I don't think is sensible in direct mode, but you can do it, you can go back to just a plain chart. So again, this like the chart view is a way to tailor how the direct mode chart is presented to you, which can help in some cases because it can make things a bit clearer. Contours does make sense to have on, by the way, just so you can change the way it's styled and presented. If I want to go back, by the way, I can just press this reset button. It puts it back to the default speed, which is 1470 RPM. But you can see here, hopefully, that can be quite a useful facility to explore the fan's capability. And then when we have the search option on the right-hand side, it also gives a very quick way of getting back to that standard product that we might have in our portfolio. And it just saves you having to go through and click all these different options, because there is a slight delay when you choose an option. The configurator tests the fact that option is relevant, and then it will basically update the screen based on that particular property. So the search facility is a very quick way of bypassing a lot of these configuration steps. But that's why it's doing what it's doing. It's testing the options. It's then removing and graying out the options that are not relevant to what you've then picked. You can see here we've got some of these options that have been grayed out because they're just not available for this particular hub. Now, this is one deficiency in the old program. It's very easy in the old program to get everything go grey and you don't know what to pick. This won't let you do that because it'll always give you something that's available for the option that you've chosen. And again, if I wanted this fan, again, I could have labeled it here. I can add this to a project. Let's just stick a duty point on it so we've got some data. Add to the project. And again, in the right-hand side here, left-hand side here, you can see here, got our fan. Now, I didn't label this one, so I can go back here. I can just rename it. I can call this direct mode, for example. So it's now got a label of direct. Let's just print this one fan, see what we get out. So printing is to PDF. There is a slight delay when the PDF is first started. It's not too bad there, but the speed of printing is not relative to the number of fans you have in a project. And by that, what I mean is if you print one fan, the print process will take 6-7 seconds. If I print 50 fans, it won't be 50 times longer. It might be 10 seconds. There's just an initial slow startup when the print process starts. So I can download the print file. You can see down the bottom I get a PDF file, and then basically what we get is, I only printed one page here, but we get the technical page here, which is what we call the summary page in the program. You can see here it's effectively the same as what you see on the screen. This is our chart with the shading that I had turned on in direct mode. And in terms of using the software, there's not much more to it than that. You basically have these top menus to navigate around. The project, as I said, is always there. That prompt that came up, by the way, I'll show you why it's done that. Because I added this fan, I hadn't actually saved the project. So if I press save, that's now committing it all to the server, which means that when I move around now, I won't get that box appearing. It's a cautionary thing to say that you might lose something if you move completely away from the website. So it is advisable to do this on a regular basis if you're doing lots of selections. It will save these while you're using the program, but if you navigate completely away from the web page and haven't pressed save, then you would lose what you've done. So it is wise to do this on a regular basis, but you can't navigate away without it popping up that box. That's why it does it. So it's a visual prompt to say, oh, are you sure? And then you can then go back and then press save and then move on. But in terms of what we've done on other courses, that's pretty much it. We've gone through the process of making a selection. We've used some project data. You've seen here under the extended view the different data you can have in terms of options relating to exporting and configuring. The only thing that we've not touched upon is then the ability for you to change how the program behaves and operates, which is your user account settings in this top right hand side. I'm going to go back to the home page just to get the screen a bit clearer. So here we have me. So we've got two options under me. We've got user settings, which are details relating to my account. So that's my details of my name, my email address, my country, etc. And then the program settings are options for the actual application itself. So we have a look at the program settings. In here, you can see you can change certain things. Now we are changing this at the moment, so it will look a bit nicer than this. Let me go fully live. But in here, you've got options relating to your defaults. So you can choose which printouts you want by default, for example. You can choose which pricing structure you're on if you have the ability to choose more than one. You can also choose some of your default values. So for example, if you're a meters cube per hour user, you can change that. If you're a 50, 60 Hertz user, you can change that. We've also got other options down here to define things like sound distances for acoustic calculations, etc. The top part, though, is the grid, is the results grid, which is driving both the results grid and your project. If I edit this, these are the columns that we currently have available to us at the moment and the order of which they're displayed. If I didn't want, say for example, I've got price on the right hand side. If I wanted price at the beginning, I could move it, stick it there. If I then press done and press save, then price will appear at the beginning of my project grid next time I load the program. If I didn't want some of these columns, I didn't want thrust, for example, I can get rid of it. A bit like the export facility. Again, I can press done, I can press save, and then keep that change. So you can basically remove things. You can basically reorder which they appear in the grid in the sequence just by dragging them around. And as long as you press done and press save, the next time round you use the software, those columns will be in that order, in that position. You can, if you want as well, which is a bit over the top, I think, you can turn off this yellow highlighting, but we'd probably best leave that on. But you can, if you wanted to get rid of some of the yellow highlights if you don't like them, just by using this toggle and then tick or cross certain ones that currently have it activated at the moment. As long as you press save, that would update your account. So next time you log in, those settings will be changed and applied to the program.